The world of high fashion is a silent cathedral, a hallowed space where entry is granted not by invitation, but by an unspoken sacrament of mutual understanding. Its gates are guarded not by brute force, but by a velvet rope of tradition, discretion, and an almost sacred appreciation for the mystique of the unattainable. To breach these gates without explicit blessing is not simply a fox pause. It is a profound transgression against the very religion of couture. This is the world into which Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, unwittingly stepped when she arrived, unannounced and unscripted, at the Alexander Mcqueen headquarters in London. What followed was not a meeting but a collision, a slow-motion crash between a modern narrative of self-authored destiny and an ancient institution built on the altar of controlled mystery. The resulting scandal, a ripple that became a tsunami, would expose far more than a disagreement over a dress. It would lay bare a brutal war for the soul of a story fought not with shouts, but with silences, not with statements, but with devastating, well-archived receipts. The stage was Clerkenwell, a neighborhood of exposed brick and whispered legacy. The Mcqueen headquarters itself feels less like an office and more like a secular chapel, dedicated to the ghosts of fabric and rebellion. On a damp, gray Thursday morning, the calm of the sanctuary was disrupted. Meghan Markle arrived just after 10. A vision of deliberate poise in a sharply tailored ivory coat, a piece of vintage Mcqueen, a conscious echo of her wedding day. Her assistant presented an iPad at the reception, its screen glowing with what appeared to be a confirmed appointment for a private couture consultation. The problem, immediate and chilling to the trained staff, was that the house's ledger held no such record. No fitting was scheduled. No meeting was pending. The creative director was in Milan. The silence in the grand, industrial space grew heavy. According to a receptionist who later spoke anonymously, she acted like she belonged. That's what rattled people most. She wasn't asking. She was expecting. With a serene smile, Meghan moved past the barrier, gesturing towards the hallowed 8-layer wing. "We'll just check the fabrics," she said, as if commenting on the weather. What ensued was a masterclass in British institutional restraint, a form of polite violence. Security, impeccably suited and impossibly calm, guided her not to the Hall of Fabrics, but to a discreet waiting area. For 15 minutes, internal chat systems erupted. Is this real? Who approved this? Check with legal. The truth, when it arrived, was delivered by a communications director with the softness of a falling guillotine. There was no fitting, no gown, no meeting. The iconic wedding dress, she was reminded with gentle finality, had been an archival commission, a transaction from a past life. Under a different crown, a contractual conclusion, not an open-ended creative dialogue. Witnesses described the precise microshift in Meghan's expression. The polished, approachable warmth solidified into something opaque and cool. "That can't be right," she asserted, her voice level. "Alexander Mcqueen and I go way back. I wore you on the most important day of the decade." The response was a study in polite immovability. "Yes, ma'am. The wedding commission was from our archival collection, not a current contract." Then came the line, uttered not with rage, but with a chilling, regal certainty that would reverberate through the industry's hushed corridors for months. "Then perhaps it's time you remember who put your name back in headlines." It was a declaration of perceived value, a statement of transactional history meant to compel a future. In the world of Mcqueen, it was heresy. The house's power derives from its untouchable narrative, its rebellion curated by masters, not by public opinion. By noon, her digital access was revoked. A sterile internal memo circulated. But this was not the beginning. It was the explosive culmination. The real story was buried in a confidential digital archive. A trail of emails and proposals that revealed Meghan's appearance was not a spontaneous visit, but the final, desperate move in a months-long and increasingly lonely campaign. For nearly half a year, Meghan's team had been waging a quiet war for a Mcqueen renaissance. The initial outreach, as revealed in emails later leaked to the Evening Standard, was reverent, almost poetic. Messages from her stylist to the London office spoke of the timeless moment of the wedding gown and proposed a new collaboration symbolizing rebirth and resilience. The house's response was a void, polite acknowledgments that led nowhere. As the silence persisted, the tone from Meghan's camp shifted. The request grew more assertive, more detailed. According to an insider, the house grew wary. "Mcqueen's power comes from mythology," the source explained. "They dress legends, not headlines." Meghan, in their assessment, was a vortex of relentless publicity, a narrative risk that threatened the delicate, shadow-draped mystique they cultivated. Undeterred, Meghan began to author the collaboration unilaterally. She made subtle public references to creative talks with heritage houses. Reporters, tipped from sources close to her, began asking Mcqueen's press team if a new couture moment was imminent. This forced the house's hand. Internal memos, later reviewed by Business of Fashion, flagged her as an unsanctioned narrative risk. The directive was chillingly clear: contain narrative immediately. The newly installed creative director, safeguarding the house's fiercely independent post-Burton identity, was adamant: no royal-adjacent press, no entanglement with a story so publicly. And Missilli still being written. Yet, the proposals kept coming. The most audacious, sent 2 months before the fateful visit, included a mock-up sketch of a pearl white dress with Mcqueen's signature corseted waist and, most shockingly, an embroidered crest resembling the Sussex emblem. It was then we realized, a former PR coordinator said, she wasn't just asking for a dress. She was trying to author the entire partnership, down to the branding, and make it look like it was our idea. By the time she walked into the headquarters that morning, Mcqueen was not surprised. They were prepared. A security directive had been quietly updated if approached by the Duchess. Confirm no active commission. Record interaction. Report to legal. The footage from that interaction, grainy and silent in black and white, became the foundational document of the scandal. It shows Meghan not as a supplicant but as a director on a set she believes she commands. She pauses before a wall of Lee Mcqueen's original sketches, her finger lightly tracing the glass as if connecting with a kindred spirit. When a junior staffer gently reminds her the design floor is restricted, she offers a serene smile. I'm just here for a moment. Lee would have loved the idea of reinvention. The irony was not lost on the veterans watching. Mcqueen was rebellion through art, one pattern cutter later mused, not through press releases. He didn't beg for entry. He broke the door with his talent. That's what she doesn't get. The situation escalated with the discovery of the cameraman, a freelancer with a mirrorless camera, claiming to be there for personal documentation in a temple where every stitch is a secret. This was the ultimate profanity. As security began escorting him out, Meghan's composure cracked, not into hysterics, but into a sharp, principled protest. This is my own story, she insisted, her voice low and firm. I'm not giving anyone the power to twist it again. It was a line that laid bare her entire philosophy. Narrative control as the ultimate survival tool. Her protest was cut short by the arrival of a senior legal representative, carrying a simple folder marked Archive Markle Correspondence. His words were the final, quiet nail. Ma'am, we appreciate your admiration for the brand, but as of this morning, your requests have been declined indefinitely. Her exit was a masterpiece of stage dignity. Her parting words, declined now but not forgotten later, hung in the air like a promise or a threat. Within hours, a 90-second clip of this encounter was in the hands of a leading European fashion editor. By nightfall, the whisper was a deafening chatter across Mayfair and Milan. Did Meghan just try to force a Mcqueen moment? The industry's response was a symphony of silent judgment. At private clubs and editorial meetings, the verdict was unanimous and damning. Mcqueen itself, in a move of breathtaking strategic silence, did not issue a press release. Instead, communications directors placed quiet, off-record calls to key journalists at Vogue, The Telegraph, and WWD. The message was identical, precise, and lethal. No collaboration or consultation with the Duchess of Sussex is currently underway. In the coded language of luxury, this was not a clarification. It was an excommunication. A brand like Alexander McQueen does not need to deny someone, unless that person has become a tangible liability. In Montecito, the reaction was one of frantic damage control. Her team floated tales of scheduling conflicts and miscommunications. But then, the digital dam broke. The actual email chain, the poetic pitches, the assertive follow-ups. The sketch with the Sussex crest leaked onto a private fashion forum. It spread through WhatsApp groups and Slack channels like corrosive gossip. The emails revealed not ambition, but a profound, almost tragic, misunderstanding. I want women to look at this gown and see freedom stitched into every seam, she had written. To the artisans at Mcqueen, this was not a creative brief. It was a press release masquerading as inspiration. Artistry, in their view, cannot be commissioned with a manifesto. It must be born from a silent, shared, and often painful, creative communion. The final, professional death knell was a leaked internal memo summarizing the entire affair. The concluding line was a 5-word epitaph for the relationship: engagement not advised. High volatility profile. She was not merely rejected. She was formally classified as a reputational hazard. Her name was quietly, irrevocably added to a confidential industry blacklist, circulated among luxury PR agencies, a list reserved for those whose narrative gravity threatens to warp the very space-time continuum of a brand's carefully constructed universe. What would you have done in her place? Admit defeat? Retreat into private life? Meghan Markle's response was to double down, to weaponize the rejection itself. A meticulously styled photo shoot at her Montecito estate followed, featuring her in a gown of unmistakable Mcqueen inspiration. The caption was a shot across the bow: when one door closes, another atelier opens. The fashion world's retort was a wave of silent derision and public mockery. A viral tweet distilled the sentiment into 6 brutal words: "You can't plagiarize Mystique." Meghan undeterred. She pivoted to an even more audacious plan: the creation of her own ethical couture label. Reina Atelier pitch decks promised a fusion of British tailoring and California ethos. A house that would do what the old guard refused, most provocatively. The proposal hinted at recruiting talent from Mcqueen's own atelier. This was no longer a request for collaboration. It was perceived as an act of corporate and creative poaching. Mcqueen's parent company responded not with public fury but with quiet, legalistic warnings to its staff about contractual obligations. Funding for Reina Atelier vaporized overnight. The venture was stillborn, yet from this ashes of this very public, very professional cremation, Meghan forged her most potent weapon, a documentary. Titled Unstitched, it was pitched as a meditative journey on creativity and control. In reality, it was a meticulously crafted counter-narrative, a feature-length act of reclamation. The premiere was a global event. Framed in the soft, confessional light of a therapist's office, Meghan recast the entire Mcqueen saga. The security footage of her being politely, firmly turned away was no longer evidence of a failed audition. With a soulful voiceover, it became a testament to defiant courage. "They said I begged for entry," she murmured over the grainy images. "Maybe I just refused to wait for permission." She reframed the leaked emails as passionate pitches from a visionary stifled by gatekeepers. The industry's rejection was portrayed not as a professional assessment, but as the systemic silencing of a woman who dared to want to design the throne, not just sit on it. The fashion world met Unstitched with a frozen, furious silence. Mcqueen's only comment was a masterpiece of icy dismissal. The House of Alexander McQueen does not participate in fictionalized reinterpretations of factual events. They refuse to even acknowledge the fight, thereby winning it on their own terms. But in the court of public opinion, Meghan had staged a stunning upset. Unstitched broke streaming records. She lost the sacred respect of the ateliers but captured the fascinated attention of millions. In a final, haunting Instagram post, a reflection in a deliberately cracked mirror, she offered her epitaph for the battle. They closed the atelier doors. I built my own mirror. The collision between Meghan Markle and Alexander McQueen is therefore not a gossip item about a spoiled princess and a snobbish fashion house. It is a seminal parable for our age, a stark illustration of 2 incompatible religions clashing. On one side, the ancient faith of couture, a belief in value derived from exclusivity, silence, patience, and mystery bestowed by an anointed priesthood. On the other, the modern gospel of narrative sovereignty, a belief that identity is self-authored, that visibility is the ultimate currency, and that control of one's story is the highest form of power. Meghan entered the temple of Mcqueen speaking the language of the latter, unaware that the former does not converse in that tongue. Her mistake was believing that her global platform, her compelling personal story, and her undeniable magnetism were fungible currencies she could exchange for creative credibility. Mcqueen's rejection was a statement that in their economy, those assets were not just worthless but potentially toxic. Yet, in her defiant, documentarian response, she proved a darker, more contemporary truth. In today's attention economy, there is a power that can, at times, rival even the most entrenched institutional authority: the power to command a global audience and recast humiliation as heroism. She may never again wear the hallowed embroidery of the house on Clerkenwell Road. The velvet rope will remain forever closed. But by turning the entire ordeal into a cinematic manifesto, she succeeded in weaving her own indelible thread into the vast, ongoing narrative of fashion itself. She became a permanent part of the story, not as a muse, not as a client, but as a legendary, controversial, and unforgettable footnote. The woman who tried to buy a key to the temple was denied and then built her own competing church in full view of the world, ensuring that the temple's silence would forever be haunted by the echo of her name.